Hello, everyone. This is Professor Pallas with your weekly wrap-up for week 5. For our weekly survey, this week we had a mini case study. And some of you may have answered the survey before you completed the readings for the week. And if you did, you might have answered it differently if you completed the survey after you did the reading this week. This week, our reading and our lectures focused on learning what the difference is between a healthy eating pattern, a disordered eating pattern, and an eating disorder. The third of those, the eating disorder, is an actual disease. In this situation, 90% of the class felt that Lisa is developing a disordered eating pattern. 10% of you thought that she actually has an eating disorder. It's difficult to diagnose an eating disorder. We don't have enough information here, I believe, to make the full diagnosis. Personally, I would agree that in this situation, the subject is developing disordered eating patterns. And this is where you need to back up your statements with peer-reviewed references or studies that support your decision. When we look at the situation, this is a person who was raised in a household where she was frequently consuming pasta, vegetables, and dairy products. And now, around age 36, with a body mass index of 23, which is within acceptable limits for her age, she is declaring herself overweight and saying that she is a vegan with gluten intolerance. These statements are not necessarily logical based on her past history of what she's been eating and with no other disclosure of problems to gluten or problems when she consumes dairy. So if you were counseling her, you would want to gather more information. So that's our survey this week. Hopefully, looking back on it now, you have a better understanding of the difference between a disordered eating pattern, a healthy eating pattern, and an eating disorder. As we do every week, let's review the due dates. Assignments and quizzes are always due at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday night. Group discussions, when we have them, the initial post is due Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. and your 2 peer responses are due that Sunday at 11:59 p.m. We do have a written assignment due on March 3rd, which is a Sunday, at 11:59 p.m. This assignment is the eating observation assignment. Several of you reached out to me with questions about the eating observation assignment, and I did post an announcement this week. I updated the eating observation assignment Word document, which is the instructions for the assignment, and I put in red underlined the information explaining how to incorporate your APA references into this assignment. So for this assignment, you're going to be discreetly observing two people who do not know that you're observing them while they're eating. For the first 9 questions, you might possibly submit that in a table format, or you could simply write a narrative, or you could just simply write 1 through 9 and your answers. Questions 10 and 11, this is where you will begin writing in paragraph format. This is where you probably will begin using a reference to support statements that you make. It's important that you learn how to do this because when you are a practicing nutrition professional, you will run what is called an evidence-based practice. Decisions that you make will be supported by peer-reviewed evidence. Most likely peer-reviewed evidence that is published by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics in their position papers. But it is a great idea, and this is why we have you do this now in school, to get used to using peer-reviewed references to back up your statements. The announcement is still published on D2L. It includes the updated guidelines and mechanics section, and also the Word file for this observation has been updated. If you have any questions or any concerns, please contact me. Also realize that using APA style means that the reference should be cited in text after your statement and then again at the end of the paper in a references list. We learned about eating patterns this week and how they relate to obesity management and intervention development. We learned about normal eating patterns, disordered eating patterns, and eating disorders, which is an actual disease condition. In the eating disorder segment, we learned about an emerging concern for the disorder orthorexia nervosa. We also learned how to use the guidelines to put together a healthy eating pattern. This is what you will do when you are counseling patients who are struggling with obesity. A healthy eating pattern is a pattern that limits added sugar, saturated fat, and sodium. A healthy eating pattern focuses on variety, nutrient density, and portion sizes. A healthy eating pattern includes a shift to healthier choices. It's important to remember that a healthy eating pattern includes eating several times a day. In a perfect world, a person would consume breakfast, which is the meal that you eat within 2 hours of waking, lunch 3 to 4 hours later, and then dinner 3 to 4 hours after that. Depending on the person, you may also program in planned snacks. If the person has type 2 diabetes, it's highly likely that you will program in a planned evening snack that includes balanced sources of carbohydrates, healthy fats, and protein. So, looking back this week, we learned about normal eating, disordered eating, and eating disorders. And we also learned how to use the guidelines to help put together a healthy eating pattern for a client. What's next? We're down to our final week before spring break. Just a reminder, please stay up to date with the readings. Make sure that you're also watching the videos and the lectures and completing all of the additional journal articles that we include for reading material. We do have an assignment. It's due this week, March 3rd by 11:59 p.m. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great week.